Much for checking out this video here. Reforge Gaming, sitting down with 30 and Still Gaming, my man. If you want to check out his channel, 30NSG, it should be linked below, or you can just search for him on YouTube. We're talking The Division 2 Year 5. Is this the time to come back? Is this a comeback moment for the game? Are we beginning to see that? Are we going to see a return to greatness for The Division? That is the question that we will be asking. We're going to come over all the information. There's a rogue mode. There's a new format for seasons. What are they doing with The Division 3? We're going to get into that. I'm going to end my first stream this morning. I was just talking about Heartland. We're going to bring everybody over and make sure you guys smash like when you get over here. So there's a ton to come over in here, Mike. And I don't know if we want to just go big picture. We want to drill down on specifics, but maybe just give us your sort of flyover of state of the game now and where you think year 5 is about to take us.
I mean, the state of the game now, I play it every once in a while. Me and Sarge jump back in, do the manhunts. We play with people in the community and stuff like that. It's fun. It's fun to just go back and continue playing the game that you enjoy and them bringing new manhunts in. If you look at it from a simplistic standpoint, they're just bringing in another NPC with a different name and a different voice, and you're hunting them down. But it's still something that keeps you coming back with the season pass and whatnot. So I love The Division. I love The Division 1. I actually didn't love The Division 1 in the very beginning, but then I loved it when they had the survival mode. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But now with Division 2, it like grew on me as the years went by. It's already 4 years old, and well, 5 now. But yeah, it's a good mode, and I'm excited that they're bringing in different game modes. I'm excited that they're kind of the castle, that they're evolving that. I've always said this, even remember in Grand Theft Auto when they were building that tower in the center, or the casino inside there, they kind of like over years they kind of updated it and kind of expanded it and made more houses in there so you could use. I like stuff like that. I like when games kind of involve with these live service because it makes you feel connected to it. So it's something small what they're doing with the castle rebuild, but I think it's a cool little mode that or not a mode, but a little quality of life, I guess you could say, that they're putting in the game. And I do like what they're doing with the DLC. Now, the story DLC, we have to wait until like this time next year to get it, but I'm excited that they put more story DLC into the game as well.
Yeah, the thing that actually got my attention the quickest was I actually hadn't gotten back into the game. I was going to try to, because we were wanting to kind of check it out. Like I checked out like a new season. But then it was just like, I got to do all this stuff. I got to do all this Warlord stuff. And I know people said it would be pretty fast, but other things started happening, so I just couldn't get into it. I wasn't actually aware that they had done a rogue mode prior to this one that they're adding, because they had Ascension, and now they're adding Descent, which you go into a simulation, and that's how they're establishing the rogue mode, right? You got green lights instead of orange. Yeah. And the premise is, go in and defeat the simulation. You can do it solo or co-op. They do like a little Splinter Cell head nod at one point in the trailer. Yeah. And this got my attention because it kind of harkens to why I'm interested in Wildlands. I'm sorry, Heartland. Not Wildlands. Heartland. Heartland is sort of bringing back survival. It's bringing back that
sort of, yeah.
Run it, and it's contained, and then get out, right? And I think similar things about a rogue. It's like, oh, I can go in and kind of enjoy the base combat and the sort of the basics of the game without needing all this investment, without needing to have done all this stuff or to have leveled a character, or I'm going to min-max, or these certain encounters are going to be too hard. Have you done much with Ascension, and does the Descent mode interest you? Do you think this is is Division a good environment for rogue modes and rogue mechanics?
I don't know if the Descent, the rogue light is going to be a big thing to bring like a huge amount back. I think it's a good mode to have in there, but I don't know if it'll keep people's attention. A lot of people, it's all about the loot. So if you want to really focus on loot, you can do the Summit, you could do Ascension, you can do now, I'm assuming, the Descent mode. It'll be interesting to see how it does, because I think they have a lot of little different modes, or I should say events going on. So one game mode that comes up, and I forget the name of it, chat, and you're going to have to remind me, but you have to use the right weapon on killing the bad guys, right? I think it's polar opposites, I think is what it's called. And something just simple like that kind of makes it a lot more fun. So you have to bring out your main weapon, and then you would shoot somebody until your bullet runs out. So if you're shooting someone and they needed your main weapon or weapon 2, then you have to swap and then kill them with weapon 2. And there's like this little game modes, and they do all these little game modes throughout the season, and it keeps it refreshing and fun. Get more XP, get better weapons. So this, to me, the Descent mode with the simulation that they're doing, I think is just another tip of the hat to them for just putting another game mode, keeping you entertained. Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, you're running around killing the same bad guys or whatever, but they keep it fresh, and that's what I like what Division's doing. As far as, I hope they haven't said anything about the weapons and stuff, but hopefully there's specific weapons that you can get from this game mode other than just like the leaderboards.
Okay. Oh, apparently, Creature misspoke. He's the one that told me it was called Ascension. It's called Summit.
Summit,
sorry.
right?
Yeah, the Summit. Yeah, I guess Ascension's from Division 1. Sorry. So I misspoke. It kind of makes sense, right? You know, it's like Ascension, Descent. It was like, oh, they're doing two different things. Why do you think they did the Splinter Cell head nod? Are they just goofing with us? Like, they're just messing with us?
No, they're actually putting a skin inside the game as well. So, starting, I believe, in June, I think you can get it. Let me see. Let me look it up. They did a little nod with the little green point in that trailer, but then you can actually get the Sam Fisher skin inside the game, which I think is free for everybody, if I'm not mistaken. They showed it in the trailer yesterday at the very end that you can get it.
Okay. What? I mean, outside of a skin, though, I don't think we're crossing.
No.
Okay, they're doing a crossover event. That'd be kind of interesting.
I mean, they might, but they're bringing the skins back right now for Resident Evil inside the game, and then they're also going to be putting the Sam Fisher skin in there as well.
Okay, well that's dope. I mean, because we're all waiting with bated breath to see, you know, what the Splinter Cell remake's going to be like, and if we'll ever get like a new Splinter Cell game. Because
I would love a new Splinter Cell game. Yeah,
I feel there's so much they could do, like stealth games and, you know, third-person games now are just so much more advanced than they were back then. There's so many new things they could add. From where I sit, I guess the only thing with the rogue mode that, you know, I would question is, how is it tied to the main game? Because I think that's the issue that people ran into with survival. In Division 1, survival was a self-contained mode, and yet you could get loot to give to your main character, but you never got stronger in survival. You always started with nothing. And Heartland is sort of like survival as a game. So you get stronger and can go back in with better loot and do more, but it's going to have that Tarkov, that DMZ mechanic of like, well, if you lose your stuff or if you die or whatever, you know, you're going to be having to kind of get your stuff back. At least that's how it seems on the surface. How does it work when you go into the Summit or Descent? Is it similar to how survival, you would kind of go in and start from ground zero, you got nothing, and the further you get stuff to take out into the main game?
No, in Summit, basically what you do is you start from level 1, you work your way all the way up to 100, and there's stopping points every 10 levels. And what you have at that, you have to go through 10 levels, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't played it in a while, but I remember you have to go through 10 levels. Then you're at like a checkpoint, and you can decide to stop there and come back and continue, or you can continue trying to go through the Summit. But if you lose, let's say you die on level like 26, then you have to start back at 20. Right, and then you have to go back through to get to 30. And once you're at 30, then and there is, you can specifically, this is why I love Division. You can specifically look, if you're looking for backpacks, if you're looking for certain weapons, you can hone in on what you're trying to get, and you can put that in. So you can just go in, do like 10 levels, and try to get the backpack you're looking for, or try to get the weapons that you're looking for. So that's how the Summit works. And then if you complete it, which I've never done, I've never gotten all the way to the 100 because I have like ADHD, where I'm like doing something. I'm like, oh, let's do this instead. And then we go do something else, and we never come back to the Summit. But yeah, so in this new mode, the way they said that you can work on your build to perfect your build, I'm kind of worried that they're not going to give us like loot and stuff to focus on. It's more of I have a really cool build. Let me see what kind of damage I can do. And you're going up the leaderboards, because they make it very specific to show in that trailer that leaderboard's back there, and they say perfect your build, and they show you rising up the leaderboard. So I hope it's more than just the leaderboard / working on your gear, because that's going to be just a quick flash in the pan type of game mode that people will do, but I don't think they will live in there, you know?
Right. That's what attracted me to it, was that I spend so much time away from the division that to come back is always that question mark of, am I going to be able to do anything? Am I going to have to do a bunch of pre-work to get up to snuff? And I thought, well, a rogue mode, I mean, I could just go and play that and just sort of grind that. And then once I get sick of it, I can kind of put it down. People are asking if it's free. I don't think when they add modes and stuff like this, what are you paying? What are you paying for?
No, you're not paying anything. This is all free for everyone, I believe, up until the story DLC. That's part of the season 4, or year 5, season 4. And I don't know if that's free for the story DLC or if that's a paid expansion. All of this stuff is coming in, I believe, as free starting June.
Yeah, they said in season 3 we're going back to New York. Season 4 there'll be story DLC. I was gonna kind of get to that in a moment. So we don't know of any of that actually costs money, because that's, Descent is free to all players, Raptor says. I assume they were adding this stuff for free. And then there's a 2-season long castle settlement rebuild. So the thing that you talked about at the open is actually going to span 2 seasons, the first and the second. And how do they make money in this game? What are they doing to monetize and subsidize?
I mean, there's skins and not. I guess there is like loot boxes. They never really like bash you over the head with it, right? So during seasons, you can earn. They're very rare, but you can earn the actual like currency in the game to go into the marketplace, and then like you'll see that you get certain pieces just by playing the game, right? You'll have like pieces 1 of 4 of this outfit. But if you want to complete that outfit, obviously you could grind a whole bunch to try to get that outfit, or you can pay a currency to complete that outfit. So most of the stuff is just all cosmetic stuff, like lots of cosmetic stuff, but they never bash you over the head with it. Like you can just play the game and constantly upgrade and constantly put it's sort of like the Paragon system, right? You're going into your watch and adding abilities or bits and points towards your overall power, and then just working on the different classes and stuff. So there's lots to do. If you're a brand new player, and I'm not sponsored in any way, shape, or form by Ubisoft or Division, I just truly like just going in and casually just going around. We use it as a banter back and forth. So like when we play with people, we just kind of nonchalant do all the missions and just talk, just banter back and forth about gaming industry and whatnot. But yeah, it's just a fun time. Like if you've never played the Division 2, it's well worth the admission price for the main game. And then with the New York, what is that one called? New York, is it
Warlords of New York?
Warlords of New York. That's another great expansion on top of that. The only thing I don't like about that is that once you go into New York, you have to complete New York before you can go back to Washington. So that's the one little downfall of it. But once you complete New York, you can bounce back and forth between the two areas.
Okay, thank you, Raptor, in chat. We were getting some clarification from both Eugene and Raptor. Per Ubisoft, the Warlords of New York expansion is required to access most of the seasonal content, so you do need to own that. They had a big bundle at one point. I remember buying it on PlayStation 5, like everything. It was like $15 or something unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a good price. And yeah, the Warlords is extra, so they are making money off that as well, the expansion, so which is fine. I'm okay with paying for expansions.
If somebody in chat could get us a price point so this episode kind of contains that, if you want to buy in, we're recording this and filming this and streaming this on April the 21st of 2023. So between now and June, when all this stuff starts to kind of kick off, you can jump back in and kind of get up to par, and it's usually very, very cheap. Like they don't make it very expensive to get back in, which we're going to discuss the franchise longevity in a moment, because there's a lot of other things in this update that has me kind of scratching my noggin and thinking, what are you guys doing long term here? I had a question about this. In Season 2, there's going to be a new incursion. Where do incursions land right now in the content loop? What are they like? How are they? Do you think they're good? Are they fun? I've been so distant from the game, I'm like, an incursion? What's that?
Yeah, the last incursions was a lot of fun. Again, everything that you do in this game is very specific as far as you can. If you want to do the summit, go do the summit. If you want to go do the incursion, you can just go do the incursion and just farm the gear that you want. And that's what I really I'll bash that over the head all the time, because what Division 2 does for looters is what all looters should do. Where if you're looking for a piece of gear, let me focus on that piece of gear. Let me have that focus on an intentionality of what I'm going for, so I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. And that's why if you're a casual gamer, if you want to come in and just do the insurgents, right? And you can do matchmaking with them as well. So you don't have to sit there and try to find 4 people to play. You can just literally just go in and do it. So they're fun. Everything in this game is fun. You can try different builds. You can really focus on what you want. If you're missing something, you're like, well, I really need this backpack. I really need these gloves. You can literally just continuously go get the gear that you want to get. Yeah, they're more like dungeons, like what Creature's saying.
Okay, so they're more like dungeons. How often are they adding something that would be equivalent to like a raid or like really high level endgame content? Is that something that happens often? I didn't see anything like that on this roadmap, unless that's part of the expansion or the story DLC in Season 4.
Repeat the very beginning of your thing.
How often do they do something at the level of a raid? Do they have things at that level, and when do they typically show up?
I haven't done the raids myself, just because I don't have the time to invest, because when I do stream, I'm only on live for like 2 hours, so I can't invest that time into that personally.
Okay.
But I believe, and Chat and Creature could probably answer this, I think there's 2 raids inside the game, or is there 3? I know there's 2 for sure. I can't remember if they added a 3rd one.
Okay.
But for the people that I know that have played them, they've enjoyed them. I mean, they say they're fun, they're challenging, and they're worth doing the loot and stuff.
As far as price goes, it looks like there's a sale going on. You can kind of get everything bundled on PC for $25. Apparently, the DLC is $9 right now on PS5, but there's an Ultimate where you get everything. It seems to be full price, says Eugene, but a sale is coming. So whenever you hear this episode, go and check the price, and if it seems like it's not been discounted, if it's all the way marked up, just wait. I guarantee you there'll be a big discount whenever this all comes around. Obviously, you'd want to do this before June gets here if you want to kind of get your character through all of the base level stuff, because I think the content loop in the Division is really good. People are saying 2 raids. Okay.
Yeah. I knew there was 2. I couldn't remember if they added a 3rd. I don't do them, so that's why I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, those are for the higher level players. So something about the Division that has always been appealing to me is that they seem to take looter-shooter live service player feedback and they actually apply it, whether it's the Division 1.8 patch way back in the day or what they started doing in Division 2 with very intentional targeted farming. They're doing the things that commonly looter-shooter live service players ask for. Before we kind of move on to the other seasons and some of the other things that I'm seeing, future of the franchise, is there anything right now that you think they're just not getting right? Are there any snags or rough spots where, you're hearing from your community or others, or even in your own sort of view of the game, that you're like, man, they should really polish this, update this, or smooth this surface out?
So about a month and a half ago, before they did the last patch, they had something happen internally with their server or whatever, and it got shut down completely, and they had to rebuild something. Since that time, the game's been a little, it's hard to explain because it's not glitchy, like all of a sudden you're not falling through the map or anything like that. Maybe you are for some people, but I haven't experienced anything like that. But what's weird is people are spawning in, and when I say people, I mean NPCs. They'll just spawn in out of nowhere now. They usually done a really good job where they're coming out of doors or trucks and stuff like that. Right now they'll be overlap with NPCs from different things, and it seems a little hard than it's supposed to be. There's people popping in and out sometimes. It's very strange. It's not like it's a bad thing. It's just if you play it, you're like, something's off here, right? So you'll have instances if you're going for people that are doing the supply runs, kill the supply run, and then it won't trigger you've completed it, and then all of a sudden you have to go do a control point and kill everyone in the control point just so that activates and goes through. So there's like little things that are happening right now that are just bugged. But other than that, the biggest problem they have with this game is the balancing of like weapons. If something's good, but this is any looter, right? They'll turn the dial too much, right? They'll nerf it a little too much, and then obviously when they nerf that, something else rises, and then it's buffed, and they kind of nerf that as well. But other than that, for my experience, because I'm so casual and I play it every like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we have a night to do it. We do it on Wednesday nights. It's just fun. So I don't really notice a lot of the big things that someone that's a hardcore player would probably answer more and have questions. Be like, well, the stats are wrong, or the gun's not working correctly. But for the most part, it's about the nerfs and buffs when they change things.
A lot of people were debating me about PvP earlier, and I said I just think games like this, it's just almost an impossibility. It always is a pendulum swing of balance. You're always swinging from one meta to the other. There's always going to be an OP build or a gun or an ability, and then everybody kind of flocks to that. Where is PvP right now in the Division 2? Like, what is it there? Does anybody do it? Does anybody care?
So what the DZ was, and this is from my point of view, guys, I don't really partake in the PvP, but the little I have in Division 1, it was like 50-50, right? People are in the PvE, and DZ was like popping off in Division 1. In Division 2, they changed a couple things where like one DZ was like easy mode, and then it was like, a little harder as you went on. And it kind of like completely killed it. I think this is why they're doing Heartland the way they're doing, because the DZ in this game is pretty much it's like obsolete, unless you're like a really high-end person and you're running through. If you show up in the DZ right now at any level, you're going to get murdered super fast of the people that are still inside the DZ, right? So you literally pop your head in, and within 2 minutes, you're going to get killed and shot, because they're a little smaller, and people are just, they're not griefing, because that's what it is. It's DZ, but you have no shot unless you do a specific build, but you can't get that build unless you go in and get the certain PvP weapon. So the DZ in Division 2 is not as good as it was in Division 1. Each person has a different experience, so you might love it, but for the most part, the DZ is not like it was in the Division 1, and that's why I think they made the Heartland the way it is.
Yeah, Creature threw that theory out that they're trying to siphon players out of the Division 2 with Heartland that are going to like, oh, I want PvP. Even Heartland has protections in it. Like, you can't do PvP until it's nighttime. Like, you're doing missions, operations, and scavenging for loot during the day. And then it'll switch to night, and now it's time to sort of fight harder enemies. It's time to extract, and now other players can shoot you. I'm interested in that long term. I'm always interested in balance, because that was always the problem with Division 1, is if you weren't getting griefed, there were players running just nasty builds, and if you weren't running that build, you'd get smoked, and I think that's why I like the survival mode in Division 1, right? Because everyone that started with 0. That's right.
You weren't automatically going in with someone already had like 1,000, the best build ever, and then you pop your head into the DZ and you just got destroyed. Everyone that joined the survival was build up your winter wear, get enough gear, the best gear, and then when you think you have enough, you're like, okay, I'm going to go into the DZ to extract. And that's what I love, and I think that's why everyone loved the survival mode so much in Division 1, because it was that even playing field for at least that you felt like you had a shot, where if you just went into the DZ, you had no shot unless you were running with a group. Otherwise, you got murder squad. You would just have someone come across and just wipe everything out that you had. It's kind of sort of a Sea of Thievish, you know what I mean? Like you're spending your time trying to get all your gold and stuff, and then all of a sudden someone comes up and just steals all your stuff. And I get that's what it is, but it doesn't feel good for people that are trying to get into your game and go, oh yeah, let me try the DZ, and then you just get murdered over and over and over, and then you're like, yeah, you know what? I only have an hour to play. I'm not going to go in the DZ. I'm going to stay in the PvE area.
Well, in survival, you could pick between, like, there was the PvE version. Like, you'd go in and there was no way to fight anybody, and then there was the PvP version. And I remember in the PvP version, you'd go in solo and there'd be teamers, and then you'd go into PvE, and people would be running like cheats and like killing everything really, really fast. And so that's always my fear. If the core element of the mode or the game can be affected by what other players are doing, I immediately have tons of concern and worry. I'm like, you're allowing the gremlins of the world to run the show, because that's what they'll do. Like, games like this appeal to just the basement dwelling gremlins who that's all they want to do is ruin things for other people. You know, they want to spread their misery. And a lot of the times these games, they're not even a fan of the game. They're a fan of griefing. Like, they'll go into the game just because it allows them to do that. And at least Heartland feels as if they're considering that and saying, listen, if you even want to engage in the PvP element, you have to go in and go through the daytime ritual first. I'm hoping that'll make people feel like, well, I've got skin in the game now. Maybe I don't want to go engage in a fight. I've got some loot. I've done a good job. I had some good fights, or I got a lot accomplished. And in the Division 2, I'm always thinking to myself, and just get rid of it. Like, who cares? It doesn't sound like it. As far as I can tell, looking at the Division 2 Year 5 roadmap, there's not really any focus on PvP. They don't really seem to care about it. Funny enough, it reminds me of Sea of Thieves. It's like everything Sea of Thieves does is for PvE.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is always interesting because, you know, PvP is apparently super important to Sea of Thieves, and yet they do virtually nothing for that side of the game. Now, in Season 3, they say we're going back to New York.
Yep.
And, you know, we're going to be dealing with some stuff there. And then Season 4, there's going to be story DLC. In a game like The Division, how important is the story? Because we had questions about that this morning about Heartland. What's the story? What's the story? I'm like, bro, if the undercurrent is there's bad people over there, go kill them and get their stuff. Like, that's pretty much all I need. Do you think that the story is, is pretty good in The Division 2? And how important is it to you that they continue to kind of move things forward with the story and the characters?
Well, I love story in the game. And I love how it doesn't work for all games, but I like how the story is delivered in Division, even in Division 1, Division 2. I like picking up the echoes. I like seeing the stories drawn out. I like the audio that plays. So you're just running around shooting people as the audio is giving you the story, what's going on. There's very little cutscenes that they do, and the cutscenes they have are good. The problem that Division did I think it was year 2. At the end of year 2, I don't want to ruin it for anybody that hasn't played it, but something happens in year 2, and you're waiting for like the cliffhanger, and then you kind of had to wait. Now, if you're picking up the game now, you don't have to wait. We had to wait 2 years for an answer because Ubisoft basically just dropped the game and was trying to figure out what they wanted to do with it, and then they decided they were going to add to it and continue on. So then they added more content. So the manhunts that you do, even though they're simplistic as far as game-wise of adding content, the stories that you're doing by picking off each of the guys and the main guy you're going for, it all connects, and it's cool the way they do it. It's different than any other game. I don't think another game could do what Division's doing with the audio files and whatnot, the way they're doing it. But yeah, it's a pretty good story. So I'm interested in seeing what happens. I like how they connect everything with the little expansions that they've added, and then with New York. And then when they bring back New York, the first thing that comes to my head, I know they're making Heartland, but I was like, oh, it says back to New York and it says holiday event. And I was hoping that New York would actually have snow again during that time, and that they might bring back survival for it. But obviously they don't say that. That's just what I read when I'm like, oh, back to New York. So they have the New York expansion, but it'd be interesting during Season 3 if they evolve it like they're doing with the castle rebuild. They're expanding the castle and bringing it back. It'd be nice to see if they make snow happen in New York and you have to go through like a blizzard again and you have to do a little survival. That would be cool to me. I mean, we're far off, but the holiday event, even if it's just a holiday event, maybe we can do a little bit of survival. That's what I'm excited about. Obviously, I'm making my own hype here. They don't say that, but that's what I'm thinking.
Oh, I mean, I have an idea of how they could tie that to Wildlands. Guys, make sure if you came from the first stream, you're smashing that like button. A lot of you lurkers came over and you haven't done that yet. Make sure you do that. Minimize chat and give us that thumbs up. Here's how I think they could tie it to Heartland. Gosh, I keep doing that. Ghost Recon Wildlands is in my head for some reason. Heartland is obviously an entire game that they would probably want people to go try, or at least, give it a whirl, right? They could do a limited time mode in the Division 2, so they bring back like survival, but they don't leave it in there. They just do it for, a season. And they're like, listen, if you liked this, go check out Heartland. Go give our other free-to-play game a try. That's always the question that I have when you have a franchise that gets this split up. When you look at Call of Duty, where do they want players? Do you want players in Div 2 and ignoring Heartland? Do you want them in both games? Do you want people to sort of leave the Division 2 and go to Heartland so that maybe they can start evolving or getting rid of PvP? I mean, I just don't know. I'm not sure what their intentions are, but they could do a limited time survival mode in Season 3 and then say, if you really like this experience is more evolved and more established over in the Division Heartland. But then you're just pulling players from the Division 2.
See, I thought, and I said this last night on our podcast, I was like, I wish they would just take Heartland or Wildlands, the way you could, and bring it into Division 2. Like, you have to take a copter to New York. I was like, so why wouldn't you just put Heartlands in, right? And even if it is a one big giant DZ, but with a day-night cycle type of thing, it would have been interesting if you took the helicopter to the Midwest, right, or to the middle of the country. I think it's Tennessee. I think that's where it's happening. And that would have been cool. Instead, they're making a separate game. And my thought process is, if you had Heartlands in Division 2, you get the player base all into Division 2, and then you would separate the player base within the game itself. So if people wanted to go to the DZ, they go to the DZ. If they want to go to Summit, they go to Summit. If they want to do the Descent, they go to the Descent. But if they wanted to go to Heartlands, you're still in the same game, and you could still try it out. Now you're literally logging out of Division 2 and popping into Heartlands. So I thought that was a bad move, but at the same time, Creature last night said, well, it's because it's online, right? And it's a separate, cross-play and stuff like that for Heartlands, which I think is a nightmare if you're doing cross-play with PC players, with console players. But that's just my thoughts on that. But yeah, I thought Heartlands, what you're saying is, they are separating the player base. Is that good or healthy? I don't know. The player base that's in Division 2 right now is like the hardcore. I mean, you're talking about hardcore people that have been playing the game for 4 years nonstop. Yeah. You'll see people with like 3,000, 6,000 level. I'm at almost 500. I think Sarge is at like 1,000 or close to it. So like you're going to see people with big numbers, which I don't know if those people that have that much time are going to go over. And if they do leave Division 2, does that hurt Division 2 because there's less players over here? But then again, if they're trying to get the PvP players and that Tarkov crowd, if they're trying to get that Call of Duty crowd, maybe Heartlands is going to be a hit on for them. But then that goes into, because it's a free-to-play game and they're pulling people away from Division 2, are they still going to support Division 2 if Heartlands becomes super popular?
Yeah, that's always the question is, are they just trying to get the Extraction crowd, the Tarkov crowd, the DMZ crowd? Are they trying to have like a suite of options so players just sort of land where they're most fitted or where their affinities lie? That is, I think, the question at this point is what are their goals for this franchise? Because, many people are thinking about beyond this too, because there's always that thought of, how long are you going to do this? How long are you going to keep this thing going? Especially when the game first came out, the Endgame kind of struggled, and we're 4 years in now. It came out in March of 2019, so we've passed the 4-year anniversary of the game. And are they attempting to do that Destiny 2 thing where they're like, listen, we're just going to just totally forestall any sequel. We're just going to kind of live in the existing game? Because something people may not have noticed, on Season 4, where the story DLC is listed, it says Seasons 2.0, and they use the phrase, a whole new endgame structure. Well, I don't really know why you would launch a Seasons 2.0 and a whole new endgame structure in your last season of Year 5. There was speculation that Year 5 was the final year of the Division 2, which, in my mind, they just confirmed that that's not true. Where do you think they're planning to take this game? There's clearly a Year 6. What are you doing with Seasons 2.0, the final seasons of Year 5, if you're not going to roll over into a Year 6?
Yeah, I'm not sure. When I saw the 2.0, I was confused myself. I was like, okay, so they're doing Heartlands. And in Heartlands, they're doing stuff where the housing or the hub, everyone can see each other. Where in Division 2, you can only see each other when you're out in the certain places, but you can't see each other inside the hub itself. Or you can see some people in the hub, but most of the time you only see a certain amount of people in a certain section. So it looks like they're trying to uh, change or adopt something in Heartlands, and maybe because they're trying it out in Heartlands, by the time this time next year when 2.0, because I would assume it's like February, March time when season 4 is coming out. Maybe I don't know. Maybe 2.0 is that end game factor where they're completely changing it and shifting Division 2 over to that type of maybe they come out with a different expansion, or maybe they come out or open up the hub to everybody. I don't know what the 2.0 stands for, or what they have in store for the actual game. I'm interested, but at the same time it's like a year away, so.
Well, and that calls into question, what about Division 3? Will there be a Division 3? Do they have plans for the Division 3? Because at this point, that would be the trope, that would be the concern is, well, Division 1 launched, and then everybody kind of walked away because you guys just didn't have it built to last. It wasn't ready. Division 2, same thing, right? Everybody piles in, everybody rolls over into the end game, and they're like, I don't know what y'all are doing, but this just doesn't seem ready. And 4 years later, it seems they're pushing Division 3 out even more to either not do it or to say we're going to wait a really long time to do this, because they've got a lot of other games they're building right now.
Well, I think there was an article, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, I forget. I could have sworn about 7 months ago, they said they weren't doing a Division 3. They said they were not. They were continuing to support Division 2. So maybe that's it. Maybe Division 2.0 is Division 3. I mean, Heartlands could be technically Division 3 as well. Like their free to play aspect of that. I mean, I don't know what Ubisoft has in store, because they want a lot of live service games. That's where they're trying to go for. So them leaving Division 2, and they just left them. They were done supporting it, and then they renegotiated and was like, okay, we're taking it back. We changed our mind. We want to continue supporting this game. And I don't think they're going to bring it back for 2 more years and then all of a sudden just drop it. I think they're going to continue doing it. Someone in chat says maybe MMO-ish. Maybe. I don't know what they have planned, but I can't imagine them doing a Division 3. We've talked about this in the past. I hate when they just take like Destiny 1 and then Destiny 2. Like, just drop the numbers and just call it Division, like they are with the Heartlands, and Division and then name Warlords of New York. Like, just add a name to it and then continue on with it, but don't pigeonhole yourself because it's a name and it's distinct. Like, oh, okay, this is Division 3 now. I can't wait till Division 4. I think if they do a real live service game, they can just constantly just add more content to it, branch it off from the main hub.
In February of this year, they indicated that they currently had no plans to release a Division 3. There is no Division 3 in the works. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to make one. It's just they're setting expectations that any Division content that they're creating is focused on the Division 2 or Heartlands. Because in my mind, if you're really looking at what they're doing, there's just no room here for the Division 3. They're doing a significant amount for the Division 2, and they're getting ready to, as they describe it, launch a whole new endgame structure that, in my mind, would be year 6. Like, you're going to be playing the Division 2 year 6 in a whole new endgame seasonal structure, which I'm actually very interested to see what they're going to do there, because you're in year 5, and you waited all the way till year 6 to change your endgame structure. Then that, to me, screams Destiny 2. When Destiny 2 had that moment and they were like, we are not going forward with the sequel, they broke ties with Activision, and then they sunset parts of the game. You know, they got rid of pieces of the game. They still continue to do that, right? Like, they remove pieces, and it becomes almost like a set piece game where certain things aren't on the table and other new things are. The Division 2, as you've experienced it, where would you see them taking the end game from where it is now? What would they evolve or revamp? Are there theories in the community? Do you have your own ideas about what they could do?
No, the only thing I could think of is like if you're adding, and I'm gonna take a page from like World of Warcraft, you know, like when you're a high level character, they open up a whole new zone for you, right? So if you're going from 60, now new zone opens up, you can go up to 80 or 100, you know what I mean? So perhaps in their world, maybe with the new end game, maybe they add, and someone said maybe they add Texas or LA or something like that. Maybe they add a whole new section. Maybe they add Upper New York. Maybe they add New Jersey. Maybe they add Philadelphia. Whatever it is, maybe they add another area big enough where now you're a high end division player. Now you can go into high end, more high end content, and then obviously they're going to put their new currency or their new thing in there for you to grind for to upgrade your gear for that 0.0001% of your gun to be more powerful. Maybe they add a new class to not only put the high end people in there, but something else to grind for, to upgrade. There's lots of different ways they can do it, but I think it would be stupid if they made a Division 3. I think with live service games they could just keep adding, like I said, like Division 2, and then you go to New York, and then Division 2, and then you can go to Texas, or you can go to LA type of stuff. I think if they just branched off like that, it'd be much better.
And they could kind of pull off what like Hitman's doing, right? Like Hitman kind of bakes everything into one, like pulls everything in, and then you could even like rename it, just maybe even connect it with the Division 1, connect it with Heartland, like pull it all in a single hub maybe. I don't know. That could be another option. I speculated this morning that I could see the future being an MMO, like Division 3 would be the entire United States within reason, right? All these major cities. And, that could go for 10 years because you could be adding a major city for every year, every expansion. You could start with 3 main cities. You've already got 2 of them built, right? And you'd add 1 more, and that would be where you start. And then throughout that year, you could go to the others. And then when year 2 kicks off, you would, hey, we're going to the West Coast, we got San Francisco or Los Angeles, and then you got, you could start getting into the more western, like desert-like areas and have some great content. So I feel like they could really go far with it, but I definitely think they would want to get away from a single city, single game, single story. I think you'd want to expand this into an MMO. Do you see it being that elastic of a franchise? Could they expand it out into an MMO style game?
I think they have the structure there to make it into like an MMO for sure. I mean, all they would have, I say all they would have to do, but let's say if they made an MMO, if you wanted to be a cleaner, or you wanted to be a Black Tusk faction, or you wanted to be, like you could easily make the factions that are in the game like the different factions you want to join. So if you don't want to be an agent, maybe you could be a rogue agent, maybe you could be a Black Tusk. So they could definitely add those bone structures to the game if they wanted to. As far as I lost my train of thought. As far as the content moving over to the different states, that to me makes the most sense. Like, why wouldn't you just keep adding different cities or different regions in the area? That seems like if you want your live service game to continue going on, you don't have to make it an MMO, but you can constantly just give new areas. Like, they have the zoo board. It's only a board, but you go to the zoo, or you go to the college, you go to the different things. They could literally just keep adding these type of content and just never ending. They can just continuously, maybe you add a suburb of Jersey, and then all of a sudden now you fly over to Chicago, or you fly over to Miami Beach or something. You know what I mean? Like, they can, I don't want to say easily can do this, but they can easily add stuff that don't have to be these giant maps or these giant big experience that you can have. They can just make it smaller niche type of stuff and literally continuously doing it. And what's great about it is if you're a brand new player coming in, you don't have to buy the whole thing and start at the end game type of stuff. You're like, oh, we have the base game. We have the Warlords of New York. We have the update for Chicago or Texas or San Francisco, whatever. So you look at it and go, is this worth my price? Is this worth the money? These things are on sale, and then I can get in. There's content there. There's plenty of stuff to do. I think that's a big sell as well.
Right, and one of the things the creature said to me is he's like they might want to even avoid launching Division 3 until they have Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora out. You've got their open world Star Wars game.
Oh yeah.
So you could say, the Division 3 from the makers of Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora and, Star Wars, the open world RPG. And that might have a little bit more weight as compared to here's from the makers of Division 1 and 2. Because there's a bunch of stigma around Division 1 and 2. Those games kind of struggled. Like and Division 2 is obviously in a better state, but first impressions are everything. Like, it's hard to get people to come back. I think a lot of people, you're just never going to see them come back. Do you think the other franchises, the other games are potentially playing a role here?
I want to say yes. I mean, I think that's why they went dark for so long for Division 2. I think they had to put all hands on deck for maybe the Avatar game that was coming out, and now we only know about the massive game 8 months, maybe a year, I guess now. It's been about a year. They've been working on it, but we just found out about it a couple months ago.
Yep.
So obviously I think it could be a thing, but again, the team that's working on this game doesn't have to make these giant DLC maps. They can literally just make little sections to add to it. Like, that's what they're doing with this. The summit's like the most bare and essential thing they did, because like all the floors are like copied and paste, right? You're going through your each level of 10. You might see the same room like 4 times in one 10 row, 10 floors. You might see the same room 4 times or whatnot. It all depends. So that's like bare minimum, like the minimal viable product that they try to do. So they don't need to make these like Borderlands expansions, you know what I mean? Like, they could just add a new area, one little place. So but what they would have to do with that, with the team that they have, is like every season come out with one new location. If it's a new zoo or a new area of New York, something, you know what I mean? Like, if they did that, I think the content would be okay, and I think people would come back and play those things, because there's just one more thing you can go farm. Like, I don't think they need these big expansions, especially since they are working on the Star Wars game, because they're finishing. I would assume that the Avatar game is like done, considering it was supposed to come out this past Christmas. So I don't think they're working on that game, but obviously I think it's all hands on deck for the Star Wars game.
Yeah, Carlos says that they'll use Division 3 as a reset button like Activision did with Modern Warfare. I mean, I don't necessarily know they would need to do a reset button, because you could just say there's new contagions, there's new problems, there's new things, and we just go to other cities, and you have to like start over because you've got new things to fight against. This is something that I've always said about the Division gameplay. They lean so heavily on the guns, when in my mind, you're the Division. Your tech should be advancing and becoming way more a part of what you do. And I know people will tell me, well, if you min-max into the right build and the right kit, your tech can get quite a bit better. I just think foundationally, the content loop and the gameplay should be more of an even split between your technology and your guns. It's such a 80-20 split in my experience. It could be completely and vastly different now, but I don't think that it is, based on everything I'm looking at. It's still very much a third-person cover-based shooter with a little bit of abilities, with a little bit of tech. This is where, if you were going to lean into more of an MMO, more of a bigger, broader game, I think you'd have to kind of split the power of the player in two. So, because there's only so much you can do with guns. There's only so much power you can give guns. I think that's always going to be a challenge for the Division existing in the real world.
Real quick, 0 Days says Division 2 is cooked. Those have left won't return. I mean, that's with any game, right? And with the live service game, you might be done with it, and maybe the next 2 DLCs that they bring in is not enough substance for those people to come back. But there's going to be a time where they add something, and then if you're back like a year and a half later, now there's multiple things for you to do, and you might come back and check it out. And where if you just do a brand new game, the amount of money they have to put into Division 3 to market that, to make that, the years they have to put into that is not, in my opinion, is not worth the time, where they can just do the minimal viable product and get more money in the short term than waiting in the long term for Division 2 where they just keep adding content. Now, if you're not interested, and I'm not saying you specifically, Zero, but if the person that's just burnt, they already got your money out of you, right? Like you put in 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours, they've gotten $100 out of you, they've gotten $200 out of you. They've squeezed you as much as they can, and now they're looking for new people to come in. That's why they're at sale at $18, $25 to get the new people in, that they now come in and they might spend an additional $25 on a season pass or some coins or whatever to get the cosmetics. And in their mind as a company, that's much more viable than putting $100 million into Division 3.
Yeah. Well, and you have to set the game up to be successful long term if you're going to invest that level of R&D and development and bandwidth. Right. You've got to be able to get that money back. So they would have to know, what can we get people to spend money on? If you go MMO style, Battle Pass, cosmetics, all of those things, you have to kind of have that hook. You have to have that gameplay hook. And that's where I think long-term the Division, I think, will always struggle to hook people. Number one, it's third person. So sure. Fans of Tarkov and fans of the DMZ, they might look at Heartland and say, no, thank you, it's a third-person game. And then in addition to that, I just think you really kind of pigeonhole yourself in. If it's got to stay in the real world, it's got to stay in with the real weapons. They really need, I think, to advance the technology, advance what the player can do, and then I think you'd have people come back to be like, okay, they've really evolved the Division. Because at the end of the day, when I look at Heartland and I look at the Division 2, it's just more Division, which is fine. Yeah. We would say the same thing about Diablo 4 or Destiny or Elder Scrolls Online. It's just more of that game. But if you're wanting to kind of explode the game out and pull in new people and have longevity, there's got to be a clear indication that you've kind of grown above your previous station, if that makes sense.
I mean, look what No Man's Sky is doing. They're doing that, right? There's the base of No Man's Sky, and then they just keep adding this quality of life stuff. So the people that are still playing the game, if they stop playing, they're like, oh, I'll come back. That's a cool add-on. But then the people that have never played the game, right? They don't charge anything for any of their DLCs over the last 6 years.
Yeah,
they're coming in and they get to experience all that stuff for the first time. And there's a lot more stuff to do. So I see that is the way I see Division doing, or Ubisoft could do with that. They just keep adding content, and the people that are done with it are done. They're looking for new people to come in to dabble in it.
Right, and I do think that whenever you have a game like No Man's Sky and you look at it and you say, well, they're doing it, I always think the challenge there is they have like 8 people on staff, and you look at Ubisoft and their operating costs, and that's always my question. How in the world are they making money to keep and support and update and add to the Division 2? Like, where's the money coming from? I'm genuinely curious. How is this game still humming and running? Who's supporting it?
You're talking about Division 2, not No Man's Sky.
I'm talking about Division 2 because that's what I say. If you could, like Hello Games can do an update, get a big surge of sales, and they're probably good for another year or two. Because there's
but I don't think there's 1,000 people working on Division 2, right? So there's like 14 guys or 21 guys working on No Man's Sky. I would assume that the team that's working on Division 2 right now with the content they're pumping out is probably like 30 people, right? So I don't think the budget for Division 2 now is like this astronomical number that they're trying to keep up with, right? This is why they're doing the bare minimal viable product by adding these little game modes and stuff like that. Because I don't buy microtransactions ever. I don't ever buy microtransactions. The only time I said I would buy microtransactions is if that Transformers game comes out, because I love Transformers. I guarantee I'm going to buy something off of that, right? But there are people that purchase the game, and the game's been out for so long, and if they got it for free and then all of a sudden they're like, well, I got it for free, so I'll spend $25. I'll spend they're making tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Otherwise they wouldn't put the money into this, right? And again, we don't know the staff that's on the actual game, so I'm assuming it's, I don't know, 10, 20, maybe 30 people that are working on that game. If that, I know Marvel's Avengers had like 5 people working on it for like the last year and a half of the life cycle of that game. So obviously with the cosmetic skins that they charge $14, they're making some money off of something. You can though, Sven. You can spend money. What I'm saying is you don't buy the season pass stuff, but you can buy the season pass premium. People are buying the premium pass, right? You can also just do the season pass and get the stuff off the free tracker and get that stuff. But there are people out there that are buying the season pass or buying the cosmetic stuff.
Yeah, and that's always the question. Where's the money coming from? And when the money slows down and the support slows down, is it a compounding effect? Like, you just keep shrinking the team to, this keeps the lights on, to keep updating it. But when I look at the Division 2, there's got to be a plan here. If they're planning a year 6, if they're planning a season 2.0, if they're planning what they described as a whole new endgame structure, then somebody's working on that, or maybe they've moved more people to it. I don't know. Or perhaps, I always thought that this was the case with Fortnite, is the game that you see out in the front is not really what's going on. Like, Division 2 could be a testing ground for their Star Wars game. Is, okay, let's see how players respond to this structure. Let's see how players respond to this content cadence and rhythm. And then that can determine what they do with these other games that they're building. And maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe it's Skeleton Crew, but this is a big social live service game experiment at this point.
I mean, to be honest, I think the Star Wars massive game that they're making, and again, I have no proof of this in any way, shape, or form. In my head, all they're doing is taking like New York and turning that into Coruscant, right? They're just turning it into Coruscant, and instead of being the agents that you are for Division, you're going to be like clone troopers in Bad Batch, right? And they could do a Bad Batch spinoff or something. That's what I see them doing, because in my head, I see the bare minimum of them going, okay, well, we already have these assets. We could change these assets pretty easily to make a large open map game and then have these characters run around as stormtroopers or characters in third person. Again, I know nothing about the game, right? But that's what I picture in my head. Massive's going, well, if we're going to make a game like this, what kind of resources are we pumping into this? Well, we already have these assets. We already have these mechanics. So let's just freshen it up. Let's change the style of it.
Well, and do you think there's something happening right now with Ubisoft? You have X Defiant kind of surprising everybody. You've got the Division seemingly about to kind of do a bit of a full court press with Year 5 and then Heartland and the mobile game. I have my own doubts about the mobile game being successful on those devices in particular because of what the Division kind of asks of you. But in addition to that, you've got Avatar, Assassin's Creed Mirage. They seemingly have pretty big plans for the Assassin's Creed franchise, even beyond Mirage. And then you got this, the Star Wars open world game kind of cooking underneath the surface. Is this sort of the beginnings of the Ubisoft comeback? Because they haven't been in the greatest state as of late. They don't exactly have a really great batting average up to this point. Is that what we're seeing? They strip down all these other projects, or, where's your confidence level in all these other projects that they're building?
I mean, all their projects, and they just came out with Ubisoft Plus, didn't they? For $15 that you can play that. So they're taking all their really long open world, hundreds of thousands of hours that you can put into each of the games, Wildlands and Assassin's Creeds and Division. So maybe their business model is they're doing the same thing as Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, where they're like, let's put a subscription service out there, and we don't care if the people buy our games. We want the people doing the subscription service paying us $15 a month, and who cares if they're playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, or if they're playing Division 2, or if they're playing Resurgence, or they're playing. So I think they're just trying to make these games as I don't want to say grindy, but that's basically what they want to make these games as long, and you engage with them as long as possible. For doing the most things as possible. They've also said in that little video yesterday that if you play this game, you can get cosmetics for this game. If you play this game, you can get cosmetics for the other game, right? So they're cross-promoting, sort of like NFTs type of stuff, where if you play Division, you can get the cosmetics for Resurgence, and you play Resurgence, you can get the cosmetics for Heartland. You play Heartland, you get it for. So they're cross doing stuff like that as well. And I think in the long run, if they start. What's the conditioning us, right? To play these Ubisoft games in the long run, you're playing hundreds and thousands of hours inside, and you're buying the cosmetics or earning the cosmetics. Then you're like, oh, I'm going to play this game, and they keep you in that ecosystem longer, right? And you start saying, oh, it's okay to purchase the microtransactions. So I think that's their business model. I think that's their business plan before they sell, right? Before they decide to sell off their company to somebody.
Do you think you're going to spend a lot of time in the Division Heartland? I mean, it's free to play, but it is just a mode though, and turned into a game.
I'll try it out when it comes out. Right off the bat, I probably I say it now. I'm probably not going to engage with it too much because it's the PvP, it's the DZ. That's what it is. It's the Dark Zone, sold in a different format, right? Yeah, there's a day-night cycle, and there's extraction, and there's co-op and stuff like that. But and it's free. It's free to play. So I'm definitely gonna give it a shot. But it's not appealing to me. I would rather just stay in Division 2 personally than go to Heartlands and like build a new character. There's only 3 classes there. There's more things to do. So personally, I would rather stay in Division 2 and have them expand that. But if Heartlands kicks off and it feels good and it does well and they keep expanding it, I'll give it a shot. But for me personally, I'm not super excited for Heartlands, but I'm definitely going to give it a shot when it comes out.
Yeah, my concern for that game is just longevity in general, like because it's such a narrow offering, are people going to get bored really quickly? Is it going to get a little too griefy? How much progress can I make if I don't extract? How much time am I investing in a single run, right? Because it has like the semblance of like the RPG game in it at its core, but then it's not really. It's an extraction game, but you're making progress. You're unlocking abilities. You're expanding your base of operations. You're expanding the map. And that sense of trajectory and progress can be potentially disrupted by other players. So I kind of have my own concerns about the potential longevity of that game. Like, how are they going to liven it up? You know, new things on the map, new missions. Are they doing seasons? I think that's going to be a big determining factor for that game.
Well, Sergeant Chat says, what does free to play mean? You know what they're doing. Yeah. And to me, when you say free to play game, I hear grindy, right? I hear grindy game that I'm going to be playing a long period of time to get the currency or get the materials or get whatever to make my gear better. And I don't know if I want to dive into that. You know what I mean? I don't know if I want to invest time into, because again, free to play in to get in, and it might be fun in the early stages, until you get to that end game, and you get to that end game and you're grinding, 5 hours to get enough material to go up like 0.1% or to get that scope or something. And that's where I kind of check out.
Well, and if you looked at the DMZ structure in Call of Duty, it was a grind, like a severe grind. Yeah. And then they reset everything the minute the new season started. And then they even introduced what people were accusing them of being a pay-to-win mechanic, where you can pay for, a loadout or whatever it was, an operative or something that was like going to give you pretty significant advantages in the game. That was one of the only concerns I had with free-to-play. Because on one hand, free-to-play has to be good, or people aren't going to play. They're going to walk away real fast. But it's also an opportunity for them to have microtransactions that could be, pay to win. I wouldn't think the game would last very long if it did pay to win. I think it would have to be cosmetics only.
Here's another bad thing. If it comes out this summer, I know there's the testing going on. There's another small game that no one has ever heard of coming out in the summertime as well, called Diablo 4. And I know it's not a shooter, but if you're doing a dungeon looter / whatnot, that's going to take a lot of away. Now, obviously, again, one's a shooter and one's a dungeon crawler, melee and stuff. But when you're going up against something like that, I don't see it, doing very well, especially because it's like a niche community. It's almost like. Remember Battlefront 2? They had the game mode inside there. It was called Starfighter Assault. Okay. And not a lot of people played Starfighter Assault. They just played the ground battles and whatnot, but they had a Starfighter Assault. And then EA decided to make a standalone game called Squadrons, which basically took the Starfighter Assault out of that game and sell you. It was cheaper. It wasn't free to play, but it was $40 that they put out there as a separate game mode. But it's a standalone game mode that they just took out of a game. That's what they're doing here with the DZ, right? They took the DZ that wasn't successful in Division 2, and they're like, let's make it its own its own separate game and put it out there. And they probably went, well, what do we charge for it? And they're like, I don't think people are going to pay $40 for this. So let's make it free to play, and then we'll make it grindy within about 20 hours, and then people will start buying cosmetics and whatnot. We'll make our money off it that way. And I think that's what they're doing with Heartlands.
Well, people are telling me that Season 3, they didn't reset anything for the DMZ, so it sounds like they kind of learned. There was some negative feedback going into Season 2 about, like, you're resetting all my stuff. The main point that I was trying to make is games like this tend to be pretty grindy. Like, they need you to kind of come in every day, because the DMZ is a mode inside of Modern Warfare. Like, Division Heartland is a mode as a game. Like, I'm really, really curious how they're going to keep up with the idea of mission diversity or seasons or, changing the map. Because I don't know, if I come back day to day and I'm pretty much just having the same experience over and over again, Extraction players are going to be looking for just primo Extraction gameplay. So if they don't get that, they're out. Division players are going to look for, it's got to be good Division gameplay. It's got to be balanced. And if they don't get that, man, they're out. They're not going to stick around. So I think there's going to be some pretty significant challenges for the Division Heartland actually getting its footing, especially if the Division 2 is doing if they're doing well in year 5 and these seasons are kicking off and everybody likes it. Well, why bother with Heartland? Like, I really wonder about the dilution of player interest here, or is somebody going to die so the other can live? Right.
Well, it makes me wonder now. Do you just come back? Is the content in Division 2 going to be so small that you're like, all right, well, I'm done doing Division 2. All right, let me go check out Heartlands, and you do your dailies and weeklies in Heartlands or whatever it is. I don't know if they have that, but you do your stuff that you have to do in Heartlands, and you're like, oh, you know what? Let me go check out Resurgence. Like, I don't know. I think obviously they know the clientele. They know how many people are playing the game, how many people are interested in PvP. They know all that data. So apparently there's enough data there for them to go, you know what? Let's take the DZ, start fresh for the PvPers. Let's get them over here, see what they do, because 20% of the 80% of people that play are going to give us this amount of money. We only spent $200,000 making this game. So how fast can we make this back off these people, right? I don't know. That's what it seems like they're doing.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just ask Mike what he's been doing lately and where you guys can catch him. And I'm going to remind you guys about some stuff we're doing for members, especially with the Division. Mike, where can they find you and what kind of content are you working on right now?
Right now, you can find me on 30NSG. That's my main channel. We have a podcast that we do on Thursday nights called Generation X Gaming. We were on sabbatical for about 5 weeks because Sarge's computer blew up. He got a brand new computer, so we're back up and running now. So we had our first podcast in about 5 weeks. You can go check that out on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, or you can go check it out on Spotify. We have 348 episodes that you can go watch over the last 8 years. You can check that out. My normal stream is 10 o'clock in the morning to about noon Eastern, Monday through Thursday. It's more of a laid back, come on by, and like you're in my living room, and basically we have a conversation about topics and different things as I'm playing video games. We've been playing MLB The Show. We just finished out the first season of our character that we made, Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China. He was the baseball player I created. So you can watch that. There's a whole series up on our channel. And then other than that, we do Let's Plays. We're going to be playing some Dead Island, hopefully tonight. If not, it'll be next week when they give me the code. And then we're going to be playing some Jedi Survivor as well, starting next week.
Perfect. Well, guys, we've been having a couple of member incentives. We're really close to a couple of them, so make sure you're doing that. I was even going to consider maybe doing like a on-the-fly VIP stream today just to sample and give people a reason to upgrade, because Zubair threw out an idea. If we hit so many VIPs, we could do like a weekly, end-of-the-week VIP stream. So maybe I'll do one in a little bit, so maybe give you guys a reason to upgrade. You can go to your perks and bump up to VIP. But there will be a member stream this evening with Madam. We'll be playing. I got some goofy games for us to play. It's usually a really fun time. We might even try out Horizon Forbidden West. You can actually each control Aloy with a controller. It's actually pretty funny. It might be pretty funny. I've never done it, so we might try to upgrade some of my weapons since I wasn't strong enough to play Burning Shores. Maybe that'll be something that we could do tonight. What? If you try to go into Burning Shores, what's that?
I said it's DLC. You're not strong enough to play it?
So they had a pretty generic video 3 weeks ago that said, get back in the swing of things, relearn the combat, make sure you beat the final campaign mission. And they did say upgrade your weapons, but they didn't say that this is endgame content. Like Burning Shores is endgame content. It's tough. And I think that's awesome because most of the people going in are probably just chomping at the bit and they're stacked to the rafters. Like everybody responded to my tweet and they're like, I'm ready to go. I'm level 50. I've got all my stuff leveled up. I'm like, I beat the campaign so that I could play Elden Ring. I didn't do any of that stuff. So I was like, I was soft like bread. They just totally picked me apart. Right here at the end, Donald Johnson's going to jump back in as a VIP, and then Quintar is going to take us all the way up to 71. Holy moly, I might end up owing you guys 5 members here at the tail end. If we get enough people to upgrade to VIP, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do a short rant session for you guys for VIP. So now a bunch of you have a reason to upgrade, okay?
Ooh.
Get in the Discord. You're not going to want to miss this end of the week rant. We might even include Creature on it. So get your subs in. I'll give you guys a few minutes. Mike and I can just sit here and BS for a minute if you guys want to try to hit 75 members and if you want to upgrade. Yeah. Mike wants to hear the rants. What did there's all this stuff hitting the news. I wish we had the ability to like on the fly do a show because like we're seeing debates. We'll probably have to kick this to next week. Like Hi-Fi Rush apparently didn't generate enough money according to Jeff Grubb. Aaron Greenberg responded to Jez Corden on Twitter and is like, we got what we wanted out of Hi-Fi Rush. Aaron Greenberg responded to a tweet and said something to the extent of, if I can find it here, he said, Hi-Fi Rush was a breakout hit for us and our players in all key measurements and expectations. We couldn't be happier with what the team at Tango Gameworks delivered. And Grubb saying he's hearing people say it didn't generate the money that it needed to, and there's executives at Xbox that are not happy.
Well, are we looking at I've said this, what's going to happen with Starfield, right? Like Starfield to me is not going to make as much money as Skyrim did because it's on Game Pass, right? You know? Yep. So are we looking at the measurement wrong? Like we're coming from an old school looking glass, looking at this going, it didn't sell enough copies, 5 million, 4 million, whatever they're looking for. But isn't it engagement? That's what they're looking for with Game Pass. Like obviously it's on Game Pass. So the engagement that they had per se, let's say they said, okay, we're going to make this game. And somewhere down the line, they have a projected number that they wanted people to play. Maybe it was 200,000 people. Maybe it was 300,000 people. Maybe it was 1 million people, okay, that wanted to interact with this. Not sales, just interaction. And they said, okay, well, how many games do you think you're going to sell? And maybe, and again, I'm speculating here, right? This is just what my thought process is. Xbox goes, okay, how much did it cost you to make this game? And Hi-Fi Rush or the company, I forget the name of the Tango is that what the company's name is?
Yeah, Tango. What is it? Tango Gameworks, I believe.
Yeah. Maybe they said, well, the development process, it cost us $25 million or $50 million, whatever the price was. And Microsoft's like, okay, here you go. Right? They give that money to them because they're making $250 million a month in Game Pass alone. And maybe they paid them, maybe not the whole budget up front, but they gave them enough chunk of change so they go, okay, we're going to release this on Game Pass. And then they want to see the engagement. And the engagement that they got, per se, by the guy on Twitter said that we were very happy and very satisfied with the engagement or whatever the word he used that you just said. And where Jeff Grubb's looking at it going, well, it failed as a game that didn't sell enough, right? And maybe we're looking at it wrong. Again, I'm not trying to defend them in any way, shape, or form. I'm just trying to think of, is there a new metric that Xbox and Microsoft is looking at for engagement instead of sales numbers? Because we know when Redfall comes out in what, a week, 2 weeks, that they're not going to sell 5 million copies of that game, right? But they might get 5 million, 10 million people to try it out on Game Pass, right? So that's the difference. And when Starfield comes out, it might sell like Halo Infinite only sold 2 million copies, but it was played well more than 2 million people. So I don't know. Right. It's a kind of different spectrum now.
Well, and people are pointing to the fact that like Tango Gameworks is expanding. Thank you, Quintar, for 5 gifted memberships. Thank you, Lone Wolf, for 5 gifted memberships. I said the wrong name, so I'm flipping everything around and getting everything backwards. There's the 5 that I now owe you guys. We're actually now like 100 and something away from the Just Dance stream, so you guys can keep it going crazy. And people are trying to point to like, oh, Tango Gameworks is expanding, but with almost 150 employees and opening another 30 new jobs. Okay, so 30 new jobs is how much they're expanding by. Now, there's other projects and things that might be in the pipeline that have nothing to do with Hi-Fi Rush, and Jeff Grubb if he's hearing these whisperings and these murmurings, just because Aaron Greenberg's going to come out here and do PR and say, hey, no, we're totally satisfied with how Hi-Fi Rush did, that doesn't mean there aren't people at executive levels saying, where's the money? Like, where's the money? We've spent all this money to build this game. How are we measuring the metric success of this game? Like, if it's not going to sell, because Hi-Fi Rush went viral. Like, it was a good game. My daughter beat it. I was very impressed with that game. It did everything that you would want a Game Pass game to do. And if you've got people at some level at Microsoft saying, we're dissatisfied with the revenue generation here, you got to wonder if Greenberg's just playing damage control on Twitter.
Well, you also have to find out, like, the people what was the investment? How long did they wait for that investment? And again, Xbox per month is making a couple $100 million. Mm-hmm. So, like, we don't know, like, did Hi-Fi Rush keep how many people left that month it came out, or how many people signed up for it, right? It's so hard for us to just speculate in how much it made or how many people subscribed. How many people subscribed or got the deal or played Hi-Fi Rush for the first time because they weren't on Game Pass, right? Did they get enough growth in that where they got the $10, they got the $15? We don't know these numbers. So we're all speculating. Jeff Grubb is talking to somebody and someone says that they're not happy, and then somebody else comes out and says, well, we are happy. So obviously we can banter back and forth all day long, but I think there's a different metric now. I don't think it's about the sales numbers, because if it was, Starfield would be on all platforms, right? Redfall would be on all platforms. If they're not getting enough money from Hi-Fi Rush, they're definitely not going to get enough money from a $200 million game that's being made over the last 6 to 7 years with Starfield coming on Game Pass day one.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the big projects. It really does. Thank you, Warpath, for upgrading to VIP. We're at 163 VIPs now. It makes you wonder. It's like, well, how are you going to measure the success of these games? How are you going to measure the revenue impact? Like, these are all the questions that I have. Like, I don't want to stretch this too long. This is meant to be a Division talk show, but I wanted to give us something a little bit to talk about to give people time to upgrade and gift members. I did pay you guys back, and it was Lone Wolf did 10 members and Quintar did 5. I'm having a hard time here. Yeah, it's still about revenue generation, whether it's sales or subs. What Eugene is saying is exactly right. And there's reports right now that sub services in gaming are seeing a slowdown already.
Yep.
Already. So what that spells, in my mind, that just spells trouble for the Game Pass format. So we're supposed to believe that Microsoft can just keep throwing money at titles the size of Starfield and then just throwing them on Game Pass. And if subscriptions are slowing, I don't know. It's why I always said they need to foster an ecosystem of purchase, because you need Game Pass to be doing more than just letting people try out games. It has to be fostering a different ecosystem.
Here's I used to work in an arcade, right? And when I worked at the arcade, we had a thing called $10 Tuesdays. Okay. Now, if you didn't come on Tuesdays, you had to buy all the different coins every single day and pop the coins in to those machines. That's right. Coins, not a card, actual coins that you had to put in the machine. And people would pay $25, $50, $60, and they would put all the coins in the machine. But on Tuesdays, and you would have, in the arcade at that time, you would have like maybe 20, 30 people in the whole arcade. And it was a huge arcade on a normal day. But $10 Tuesdays, okay, we would have hundreds of people inside that arcade because they were just paying $10. And you're like, well, are we losing money? No, we made a crap ton of money because the people that were coming in, okay, not only were they paying $10 to play the arcades unlimited, okay, but the redemption's not unlimited, just the regular arcade games. So then people started spending money on redemption tickets, right, the redemption games. And then they went to the snack bar and bought something there. So my analogy here is that, yes, there was more people in that $10 Tuesday time frame, okay, they were only paying $10, where the guy on the normal day was paying $25 to $30, but there was less people there. So in this scenario, if someone comes in because a new game's out there and it's only $10 to join for the month, am I now engaging in other things I wouldn't have engaged with? Am I playing a different game that has a cosmetic that I now got a season pass, or bought a microtransaction, or bought another independent game for like $20 or whatever it was, right? There's other avenues of getting people through the door. The $10 gets the people through the door for the arcade, and then they see everything else that's in the arcade, and they play the redemption games, they buy a snack bar, they get a drink, they do all this stuff for the $10. Bare minimum. The bare minimum to get into Game Pass is that $10. What else are they spending while they're in Game Pass for that month?
Yeah, that's. I thank you, Lone Wolf, for another 5, taking us to 81 on the day. I'll owe you guys another 5 here in a minute. You guys are crushing it. I remember going to the fair once, and it was, $10 to park, and then it was $15 to get in, and then they wanted to charge me for every single ride. And I mean, I've never gone back, ever. I'm like, this is quite literally robbery. I'm never doing this again. It's a complete ripoff. But that model, works for a reason. Once you get people in the door, now it's like, well, now I got to spend money. So I've continued to think that, game trials and a way for people to try games and then have them buy the game, right? Right. That's another 5 from Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf going crazy right now. I think that's a format that would be one where you would start to see more revenue generation, and then you could truly measure the quality of something that came to Game Pass. Like if somebody played Starfield and you let them play for a certain amount of time, and after they've played for a certain amount of time, all of a sudden it's time to buy it, bro. Right? That's a measure of the quality of the game. That's a measure of the quality of like, hey, is this worth us spending money on and continuing to invest in it? But I just feel like they've painted themselves into a corner. It's like, this is it. You got to go day and date with all your first party titles. Like, right. I don't think ABK is going to go well for them. I don't think it will. Go ahead. Let them buy it at this point is my mentality. Go for it. It'll drag them into the ocean. It's like, I know they'll get a ton of revenue from King and COD almost instantly, but the check that they're writing is so much bigger than the revenue they'll get back in the short term. Chris with the 5. Here we go. I don't know.
Real quick,
go ahead.
Actually, Eugene, I'm on your side as far as saying it's a lost leader. I've said that multiple times for months and years, right? Microsoft is a bigger conglomerate than just the Xbox division. They're using this to get a loss, to get into a market of something. So if they're using and losing money on this, in the bigger grand scheme of things, they're getting other information from us, right? You got an email, you got a whatever. You're signing up for something. They're selling your info to something. They're doing something to make up the money that they're losing here. And on top of that, look at Elder Scrolls Online. Okay, for instance, that's $10 a month, and your people that are playing Elder Scrolls Online. How many people do you think that play that game? It's a wonderful game. How many people do you think are paying the extra $15 a month to get that extra backpack space, right, in that game, right? So this is that $10 parking, $15 to enter the thing, right? Like that's what they're doing. They're nickel and diming the people on the platform with so many different games. People get on Game Pass and they buy a game after the fact. They buy a season pass. They buy a battle pass. They buy the extended storage. There's other ways coming in. It's not just the $10 a month for Game Pass or $15 a month from Game Pass. There's other revenues coming in from Game Pass.
Yeah, and I'm actually curious if they're already sort of in a better pattern, because we do know that for a while the gaming division at Xbox was not in a great spot, right? They almost shut it down. They weren't profitable, and now we're assuming and presuming that it is profitable, right?
Right.
And I would at this point want to see it. I would want to see it all play out. Let them get ABK. I kind of want to see those things that the FTC wanted to see. I think at this point, my biggest interest in the big discussion is the FTC won their motion to compel, so we're kind of waiting to see what happens from that. Microsoft having to hand over their own documentation about the relationship between subscription gaming and buy-to-play gaming. Like, what's the relationship between the two? What does one do to the other? And that I think is the next big development. I guess there's situations happening with like FTC and CMA, but not enough for, I just didn't want to do a show on any of it. I think that's sort of the next big development that I've been waiting for.
Yeah, I haven't covered it because it's just, You're doing a fantastic job, and lots of other people are doing it. And I'm just tired. I just want it to end. I just want them to either buy or don't buy. I'm tired of talking about it myself for the deal.
It is funny to watch people sort of just get fatigued with it. Like I saw some people say, "Oh wow, Sony comes out and announces their purchase." I believe it was yesterday when this got officially announced. And
the other company they bought, yeah.
Yeah, they buy Firewalk Studios, and they seem to be amassing shooter game talent because the guys at Firewalk, a lot of those guys are original guys from Bungie, and we all know just how good Destiny feels. And then you got Deviation, and then you have Bungie there that's going to be spearheading and helping Sony build live service. Do you think they're actually taking it serious now? It's like, well, we're going to build a COD competitor. Like, we're actually going to do what you told us to do.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it for months and months and months. I said, stop crying about Call of Duty and go make a Call of Duty. Like, go make the next Call of Duty. Like, sure, it's nice to get that easy money from a game that you didn't have to put anything into. It was a third party game and they were making a lot of money from. But if you want to compete, then go make your own Call of Duty. Make that game.
Well, and I kind of baited the Twitter feed just a little bit because I said, hey, go make a Call of Duty competitor, and then they do, and they're like, well, not like that, right? And right. Everyone's like, no one's saying this, no one cares about this, this is just such a small, boring, little company. They've not even done anything. And it's like, that's exactly what I wanted everybody to say. I wanted people to say, this is no big deal. It's just some small know-nothing company. Because now you can't turn around and say it's equal to ABK. A 150-person studio is not equal to Activision Blizzard. So they kind of played right into my trap. I was like, I knew people were going to say, dude, no one cares about this. No one cares about this studio. And it's like, great, thank you. Now nobody can cite this as being like equal to Activision Blizzard because it's like 150 employees. It's nothing.
Yeah. Well, one time Activision was that nobody cares in company. You know what I mean? And then they made game after game after game, and they built up their portfolio, and then became this conglomerate company that's being bought for $70 billion. Right. So like this little company might be nobody now until they make a name for themselves, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, good move for Sony. I just want to be clear that I'm for the model that PlayStation's doing. Have been from the very start. Sell a game, make a game, okay, or make a game, sell a game, full price, get your full money for that game, and then once it tapers off, then you put it on your service. Obviously, Game Pass is completely different, and they put everything on there, and it diminishes. I'm worried about Game Pass. It's a great value for people, but bad for the industry. I've been saying that for years and years, and I like what Sony does for them because God of War sold 11 million copies. Starfield is not going to sell 11 million copies in 3 months. It won't sell 11 million copies in 10 months because why? It's on Game Pass. No one's going to the multiple population is not going. The majority of the population is not going to go out and buy Starfield. They're going to pay $10 or whatever the fee is to try it out on Game Pass for 1 month.
I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced that you can abandon the buy-to-play model with games the size of Starfield because that's the evolution of gaming has been in the buy-to-play model. I'm not convinced that under the subscription model you can have games the size of Starfield. I'm not convinced. Right. I think you're going to see AA games. I think Game Pass will become a funnel of smaller scale AA games, and the reason Microsoft is grabbing what they're grabbing is because it's already in production. So that to me adds a lot of fear about size and scope of Elder Scrolls 6, Fallout 5, anything of that size, anything of that caliber is, I think, a cause for concern with respect to where's the budget, where's everything else. Guys, we'll be wrapping shortly. I gave you guys a little bit more time, 9 more to hit 100. And we'll do a short VIP stream for all the people that have upgraded. And if you want to come and watch, you're going to have to upgrade. So, because we've had this discussion before, and you take a similar line sometimes that other people take. You're like, you add up all the subscription fees that they get every month. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, they're getting all that money. But with the number of studios they're aiming to have, wouldn't Game Pass have to rise to the size to then subsidize all those studios? Because right now they have more studios than PlayStation. They're looking to get all of the studios under ABK.
Well, you look at what the cost of I think God of War cost $200 million to make, I think, right? The budget for God of War Ragnarok was like 200 mil. Okay. If Game Pass can make 250 mil based off just the amount they have right now, off $10 with 25 million people, that's in 1 month, they make the production value of what it takes to make a God of War, and God of War takes 4 years to make, right? So in 1 month, they make enough money. Obviously, it's not the, there's a cut that it's caught, but they make enough money in that 1 month that they could afford to get a company to pay the devs for the next 4 years off that 1 month of subscription model, right? So now times that by 12. Not all games cost $200 million. You know what I'm saying? Like a game like Redfall probably costs around, I would say, 75, maybe to $100 million, if that. Okay, so they're not spending as much money as everyone thinks they are when they pay off a company. Like they signed the deal with Arc, right? Sony paid, I think it was like $3.5 million for 1 month to be on Sony PlayStation, right? Meanwhile, Microsoft paid 2.5 or 2.7 mil to have it on Game Pass, right? For however long that is, right? So they paid less than what Sony paid for and got it onto Game Pass for the foreseeable future, and they got the exclusive for Arc 2 whenever it comes out to be on Game Pass, right? So I don't think they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars for one game. I think they're spending millions of dollars, which they could pay off 20 games if they wanted to for the entire run of their production, right? If they're all independent games, they cost $10 million. They make $250 million. That's 25 games that they can make at $10 million revenue for the whole run of the it took 2 years, 3 years to pay the devs off. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think there's a pretty big flaw in the logic, and I think it's the fact that so much of what they've had to put on Game Pass up to now were third-party games. So they've been writing a lot of checks to a lot of people. So
right.
that
and third party, though, they're not putting that in full production, though. They're only paying us a percentage of what they're to get those games on the Game Pass.
Sure. So what I'm saying is you're talking about creating an environment where they're doing both. They're writing big checks to third-party developers to, hey, come on Game Pass. You're not going to sell. You've got Activision on record saying we don't want to be on Game Pass because it'll hurt sales numbers. We'll end up making less money. So you're going to take a property like Call of Duty, put it under that environment where it will make less money, but your production costs on those studios stays the same.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, they have no say. Once they get bought, it doesn't matter what Activision, right? They're like, Big Brother says, get in line. They'll be like, okay, we're getting in line. So let's say Diablo cost $250 million for the whole production. Took 7 years to make Diablo 4, $250 million. 1 month, they could take that money and they pay their devs for the next 4 years. Like they have that nest egg off to the side. They're like, all right, let's make Diablo 5. What's it going to cost us? $250 million. Great. We take January of 2025's money and we take that and put it off to the side, and that's going to be your money to spend on for the next 5 years. Let us know if you need more money, right? We look at Microsoft as just the money that's coming into Game Pass, or Xbox is the money that they only get to spend on Game Pass, right? And that's not the case. Microsoft makes trillions of dollars and they're spending money. Yes, they're losing money, right? They're not making the best quality games. They're making, and this is where Game Pass comes in. You've said this, right? You're a Game Pass developer. You're going to make these AA games. You're going to have those independent games. You're going to have enough games on Game Pass to just flood Game Pass to make it look like the value's there for what it is. At the same time, they can spend $10 million to throw it like Outriders. They can spend $200 million to throw out a big AAA game to get it onto Game Pass. They can spend money for first-party titles and get them out early and then fix them over the next 3 years because it's only on Game Pass. You see what I'm saying? So they can nickel and dime and move the stuff that they want to do. It doesn't have to be like they're putting it all out on day one. They just know that, okay, this game costs us $200 million to make, and we have 5 years to pay this off, and we have the developers. So the developers are still making their money. Okay, it's the investors that are waiting to get their money back, the guys who pay the bills, right?
Yeah, my thought has always been you're just going to deal with the volume problem, because people are like, well, as the subs grow, well, the subs aren't growing. Like that's the problem, that's the concern, that's the worry, is that the subs are slowing down. So then the question becomes, as you get more people on the subscription funnel, you're going to need to write bigger checks to the third-party developers because that's more people that don't have to buy the game.
Sure, but at the same time, they're also getting more first-party titles, right? Once they buy Activision, they're going to have 48 studios, right? 48.
Right. What I'm saying is their production costs are about to go way up, and I don't see Game Pass rising to meet it. Like, there's just no way. It's like if subscription
that's
service
a gamble. That's the gamble they're doing.
That's a huge gamble because if you look at the subscription television service situation, that bubble bursts. Like, they're writing a humongous check, and I don't think Game Pass can support it. I think it's going to break them.
So I'm not saying they're doing this, but I read an article yesterday that they said they did a study, and they said half of the population of planet Earth is playing video games now. 3.7 billion people in the world, okay, are playing, and 80% of that is people playing mobile games, okay, regardless if it's like Candy Crush or some war game or whatever it is, right? Only 300 million people, or 300, I think it was 350 million people, are playing console / PC. Everybody else, 2.5 billion or whatever the hell it is, 2.8 billion is playing on mobile devices. Now, Microsoft's main attribute right now is to get that mobile market, which is why Activision Blizzard's coming in, right? So what happens if Game Pass all of a sudden becomes a app on your phone where Candy Crush is where you get it, right? The Microsoft Store is where you get Candy Crush or any other mobile game that they've created, right? You see a lot of people like Netflix made Oxenfree 2 with the studio that they picked up, but it's not on Xbox, right? That Oxenfree 2 is not coming on Xbox, but it's out for all other platforms. Why is that? Well, because of Game Pass, right? Netflix is a subscription service. They don't want their game on another subscription service because they want people to come to Netflix or pay full price and buy the game separate. Well, if the deal goes through with Xbox, they want it on Game Pass. That's where they want everything to go. So if Xbox gets this deal, they get the mobile numbers. Sure, as gamers, we look at it and go, there's no way in hell they're going to get enough subscription models because of the games that they're putting on Game Pass. But what if they have the mobile phone market of Candy Crush and all those other games on Game Pass as well? And all those people that played mobile games now come over to Game Pass. That's a huge increase on Game Pass because they're paying a monthly subscription. And they know the monthly subscription works because Apple is the leading person in the mobile market with the games market that they have with the Apple Arcade. They're leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else with the subscription service. So who's to say they don't come out with a mobile aspect of Game Pass for the mobile market at $5 to compete with Apple?
It wouldn't surprise me. But I don't even know if they want to do that. I think they want the mobile revenue. They said they're going to launch a mobile storefront. I think that's happening. So that's where they're going to try and get that revenue. So, guys, I've got the VIP stream scheduled. We need 4 more members to hit 100. If you guys want to upgrade to VIP, do it quickly. We've actually gotten even more people to upgrade. We're at 165. So we're really close. I've already got it scheduled. I'm going to redirect. This is just a sample. We're not going to do this every week unless we're at 200 VIPs, but I'm going to try and give you guys a little reason to upgrade. So I actually agree with you that it's probably more focused on mobile anyway. Like, I don't 100%. I think Game Pass is just, at this point, it's a lost lead. I think it's a Trojan horse for their game, their console ecosystem. As far as its as far as its profitability, I don't think it's helping them. I think it's hurting them. I think it was concocted back when they decided not to shutter Xbox gaming division. Netflix was booming, and I think they thought, "Ooh, let's do that. That's a good business model." Well, fast forward to today, that's just not the case, and ABK is like their Hail Mary. Like, let's get enough property to basically leverage our way into mobile and cloud and to win by sheer quantity is what I feel like they're doing. They're playing a quantity game is what it feels like to me.
Real quick, Anthony says, why do people need Game Pass for free when they're playing mobile games? What I'm saying is that they have a mobile market. Like, Apple charges for a subscription model to play all their games. So they put all their games behind a paywall. You can play all these games all you want, however many they're on there, for a small fee. And then there's also microtransactions in a lot of those games as well, right? And then even if it is a free-to-play game, but they put it on their Microsoft Store, you can download it for free, but you're going to pay, hopefully, that's why they want you to play. As the longer you play, the more likely you are to buy a microtransaction and stuff like that. That's where Microsoft is wanting to go. They want to get into the mobile market. So not only do they have the revenue coming in from microtransactions, but they have from mobile games, and then they have from Game Pass, and then they have from battle passes. It's multiple markets, multiple incomes coming in across the board.
Yeah. What Mo says, but they came to Microsoft. I think that's just so immaterial at this point. I think there's enough evidence to see both of these companies were interested in this. I don't think this was just a pure Microsoft's minding their own business, whistling while they work, and like Activision comes over and says, "I got a crazy idea." Like, I got a crazy idea. Like, no, I think Microsoft was just as much initiating this discussion and this potential as anybody, you know. And I don't know. We've got to move on. We've stretched beyond what I really wanted to stretch beyond, and now we've kind of dipped below a certain view count. If Mike wants to stick along, he can. But we need to switch to this VIP only stream. If you want to upgrade to VIP, you got to go to the members page or the join button, and you click see perks, and it should give you the option to upgrade. And Chris is going to hit us right here at the buzzer beater. He's going to get us to 100 members, so I owe you now 5 more. So this is more people that have the opportunity to upgrade, and as well have an opportunity to watch tonight when I hang out with Madam. So I'm going to give 5 more, and you guys can all use the members page or the join button to upgrade to VIP if you want to come with us. So the next stream that we're about to do is not for all members. It's just for VIP. It's an experiment. We usually do not do a member stream on Friday afternoons, but we can do this as a little VIP incentive. So we're at like 166 or 167 on the VIP count. So anybody who's getting a membership right now, if you see your name in chat, you can upgrade. You just have to go to the member page or the join button. So let me pull up the member stream so we can get going. And Mike can stay as long as he wants. I mean, if he's got stuff to do, I'm not going to keep him.
I can hang out for a bit.
Okay. Hey, we're testing something out. This is a VIP and above member stream. We've never done this before. We're trying to get people to 200 VIP count. We're at like 166, 167. We're really close. I wanted to whet people's appetite with a little unfiltered, rant stream. End the week, debrief, decompress, maybe even complain a little bit. We might even include Creature in this call. Mike's going to stick around for a little bit. We did a stream, if you missed it, I did a stream about the Heartland game and why I think there's good and bad, and then Mike and I discussed Division 2 and it's year 5, and then we got to get a little bit into Microsoft commentary. So I'm going to end that stream and bring everybody over who can actually watch. If you're a member, just go to the join page or the